everybody, welcome back to the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Super excited to have you listening today, whether we're hanging out in the backseat of your car or we're hanging out on your earbuds as you walk your dog, whatever case might be. We love that we're with you twice a week, every single week, to help you to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. One thing that we talk about sort of tangentially, but we don't really get into the weeds enough on is client relationships and, more importantly, trust. And so I've got a trust expert with me today. Tracy, how you doing?
Good, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. We had a terrific conversation prior to us coming on and airing this, and I was just super excited to have you on. And as everyone knows, we start with our quote of the show, so that's what we're going to do today. Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices. When it's absent, everybody notices, unless you're alone, then not so much. That's a Warren Buffett quote, and so obviously trust is your jam. But talk to us about that quote. I'm assuming I know why you like it, but I'd like to hear your take on it anyway. And welcome to the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, thank you. Trust is just one of those things that I think is highly taken for granted, just
Yep.
like the air we breathe. And the
Yeah.
minute that it's not there, then it becomes all consuming. And so it's a large driver of why I wanted to spend energy and effort helping people be better at it.
Yeah. I'm one of these people that I think trust too easily. And I get sucked into people's worlds that I just like think they're great and I trust them, and then I get burned and I'm like, what did I do? I gotta, have a little bit more of a wall up. But is that the case where there's some people that don't trust and some people that trust too easily?
Well, yes, that can be the case. But let me tell you, because that's the age-old question is, should trust be given or should trust be earned?
Mm,
And so I actually don't want you to stop doing what you're doing. I want you to keep doing that. And yes, maybe don't trust quite as far
How,
initially.
how about trust but verify? Is that the
Well,
key?
yeah, right. So I think
Yeah.
we've got to take the baby steps until that trust is established. But what's interesting, and very few people realize this, is that the gesture of giving trust is actually a physiological phenomenon. So you decide to trust me with something that's not too risky. When you do that, in my brain, it releases oxytocin, which is the love or connection hormone. And it incents me to want to trust you in return.
Mm,
So I do that, and then that releases oxytocin for you. So then you trust me back, and I trust you. So, people say, oh, that trust has to be earned. I'm like, yes, I don't
yes,
think
but
so. Yeah, because we don't give an opportunity for that physiological phenomenon to actually create that bond. So the trust but verify, or the trust in small steps. So I'm not going to give you, my bank account,
mm,
but I may loan you $50,
right,
until
right.
I can trust you, kind of thing.
Hey, everybody. So you're checking out my friend Tracy LaLonde. She's the chief joy achiever at Joy Achiever. And so joy is sort of number one, but then talking about trust, and I want to hear about both. But let's get into your background a little bit. How did you become a joy achiever?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have over 30 years in the training and development space. The first in the 90s, first part of that, I was in the high tech consulting area. And then since 2000, I've been in the law firm world. And when you do what I do for a living, you invariably teach a number of topics. So I've done things like business development and management training, and obviously now trust. And Joy Achiever came about in 2018 because I had survived a period of burnout. I have been traveling for 40 weeks a year, 3 cities a week, loved the work, but the lifestyle was killing me, kind of thing. And so I embarked on a path to try to help prevent people from falling prey to my same fate.
Mm,
So Joy Achiever is really about helping high performing or high achieving individuals deliberately build more joy in their lives.
yeah. And I think there's something going on in the legal space where I don't know if it's the billable hour, if it's the grind. I mean, lawyers have never been busier from my perspective than I've ever seen them. And I feel like they're missing joy. We can talk about trust, but I mean, I take a moment on the joy because it's
Yeah.
hard to get joy when you're, just in the grind on the hamster wheel running as hard as you can.
Yeah. Well, and we are used to living a checklist of achieving almost from the day we were born, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think truly for me, how I look at it is I don't think that we have a deep or robust enough understanding of self such that when we have an opportunity to recognize that we have a moment to make a choice, that we can choose for joy because we don't actually know what might make us happy because we've gotten into this habit of defaulting towards work. And by the way, I'm guilty as everybody else
Hmm.
on this. So, the simplest of examples is I've committed that I'm going to leave my desk at 5:30 today because I'm going to have my evening plans, have dinner with my family, what have you. But then those emails come in and I spend 2 more hours at my desk just by habit. What I want people to realize is that's a moment where you can choose for joy. So some nights you do those emails, but other nights you actually can shut things down and go with your family. So it's super simple, but
Yeah.
it's enabling people to be more proactive and intentional around making those choices.
Yeah, and I think there might be something to be said about discipline. I think there's a lack of discipline in how we you not balance work-life balance because I believe in work-life integration. However, there's a point where you have to switch off
Yeah.
that work side to go and have a lovely dinner with your family or to go to the game and really be invested in your child's soccer game or whatever it might be without continually looking at your emails and your phones and just like you have to and the discipline to do that, I think, is the tricky part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because we also live in this ASAP culture, with
Yeah,
high levels of responsiveness and needing to be connected to the phone. And we're not having enough intentional, transparent conversations with the people who are expecting responses, i.e.,
yeah,
clients. So even chatting with clients and saying, what is your expectation on a Friday afternoon when you email me? Or when that email comes in, asking in that moment, like, sure, I agree that we definitely need to give an acknowledgement, like, hey, Steve, I got your message, I'm on it. But on it doesn't necessarily have to mean I have to do it tonight.
right.
So, excuse me, asking that question back of, is this something you need urgently or can my team get to it on Monday?
Yeah.
And it's just that simple moment that I think we aren't taking, aren't expressing with folks in our lives who are asking things of us.
I think I have a good transition. So you want to get out of doing something that maybe is interrupting your joyful time and you need to delegate it to an associate, you need to delegate it down to someone, but you don't necessarily trust, you see how I did that? That they're going to get it done. And so that may be why a lot of attorneys say, "Oh, it's just easier for me to get it done." And they end up doing a lot more work than they need to do because they're not trusting the delegation. And so let's maybe start there and then work our way through trust because I think that's where a lot of lawyers and a lot of professionals generally miss the mark on how to remove work and remove things from their life due to a lack of trust.
Right. Well, and in some ways it goes back to this trust given versus earned is either way, they're not giving that person an opportunity to earn it.
Yeah. Right.
So they're not giving a moment of trust, they're not giving people an opportunity to earn it. And so I think that individual has to really assess of what's the obstacle. And it's typically driven by fear.
Mm.
They're not going to do it in the right time frame. They're not going to do it as well. They're not going to do it the way I would do it. And all are fair, but it comes down basically to communication and the way that we delegate. And as we probably both have had experiences, not a lot of people are great at delegation.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And I think the other part is that delegation isn't an all or nothing thing. It's something where you need to start where there might be some micromanagement involved on the first thing you delegate to see how that goes.
Yeah.
That goes badly. Okay, we worked through it. Then the second time, maybe a little less management, a little less management. Eventually, someone's totally autonomous and being able to do and crush the work that you're handing them left and right. And I think some people are just missing that there's some training and there's some process to that.
Yeah. Well, and people go to the space of I don't want to be a micromanager, like you said. I think sometimes we delegate tasks that are too big,
Mm,
especially when we're just getting to know and trust that person.
yeah.
So we'll delegate to somebody like, go write this brief. Okay, wait, hold on. Maybe we should break it down. Why don't we start with the research? So let's delegate the research part of it. Then let's delegate the outline part of it. Then let's delegate the draft part of it. so that we can build up that trust and it's not so big so we don't actually have to micromanage, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
We're giving an opportunity for dialogue to happen while we're getting to the end goal, which is
Yeah.
the brief.
I'm going to give lawyers a bit of a tip here. This might be worth its weight in gold for you all in the 30 minutes we're together. And I've helped a lot of attorneys with this. It's to create a checklist of what your expectations are on something that you delegate or hand off, so that the grammar is checked and there's like 4, 5, 6 check boxes that they need, that the person you delegate to needs to check off and sign or whatever to before they get it back to you. So if your concern is you're going to give it to them, they're going to screw it up, and then you're going to have to redo it, for example, there's a checklist that they can't turn it into you without that checklist being, so they've reviewed it before they've turned it into you, so expectations are met. Simple, but it's not done. And so then you get things back. You go, this person's an idiot. I'm not going to send it to them again. I'm just going to do it myself. So there are things that you can do to sort of incorporate and build trust, but I think you also have to be a good manager of that project.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea. Love
Yeah.
that.
So let me ask you this. There's earned and there's given. And as I mentioned, I'm sort of giving more than I'm earning, but I feel like, I also test people out. Like I trust them initially, give them the benefit of the doubt, and then I sort of test their trust over time. That might be in giving them something to do or making a connection for them and seeing how they follow through, little things like that. But how do you kind of like, how does it start and where does it go? Like, how do we really build trust?
There's power in the repetition of it.
Okay.
So because of this oxytocin physiological response, the more we do it, the deeper the connection comes.
Okay.
People who've worked together for a long time, they almost don't have to speak anymore, or in a marriage or any other kind of relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
So, repetition is what builds it, because that's what we say, it takes years to develop and moments to lose kind of idea. But
Hmm.
what's interesting though is that when so say for example, I offered you an opportunity to do something for me and build that trust, and you break my trust. Many people think that the onus is on you to repair it. And yes, you do have responsibility into repair. However, so do I. It's in that same idea of the reciprocal nature of trust. We're both building it. We both have an opportunity to repair it. And most people don't think about it that way. And I think about it a couple different ways. Number one, do I not trust everything about what you've done? Or is it you missed the deadline, so I don't trust your time management? But I do trust the quality of what you've delivered. So discerning exactly what it is that I'm not trusting, so that I don't just write you off like, well, I'm never going to work with Steve again. Like, that's not helpful.
Hmm.
So I've got to figure that out. Then two, I've got to tell you that, hey, Steve, you missed that deadline. That's a problem for me. Let's talk about, is it time management or is this a one-off thing? I also have to assess my own culpability. Did I give you the right deadline? Did I give you enough time to make the deadline? Was I clear in my conversation around it? So that's, I think, another important nuance that most people don't consider.
Yeah.
And this idea of giving versus earning is like, you've broken it. It's your fault, your problem. You've got to fix. Like, no, we're in a relationship here with two people. So both have responsibility to try to repair.
Yeah. I mean, I literally just sent out an email this morning to some friends of mine that had agreed to do something and they haven't done it. And my email was, is there something I could have done better to manage this?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing this isn't being done, and I'm like taking ownership of that, but I'm also like hearing how they're going to come back to me. Like, how are they going to respond to that email? And I
Yeah.
think that's an important part of, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's definitely a part of it. Because another factor is how somebody handles the
Yeah,
situation.
like
Either
taking ownership versus like pointing fingers and rejection.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So
So,
how upfront?
how do people? I don't know that that's like how do people inadvertently erode trust? I
Yeah,
mean, like a client that doesn't trust you anymore, or a friend that doesn't trust you anymore. I don't maybe even realize it's happened, but it has.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there are a number of ways. Let me give you a couple examples. One might be something I call the incomplete picture. So I am not giving you the information you need,
Mm,
or maybe the information is old, or maybe it's incomplete. So therefore you learn not to trust me because I'm not giving you all the information that you need.
Or
And then,
I might like imagine things that aren't really there because I'm
right,
filling in the gaps that are being left out.
right. Another is something I call the disappearing act. So I delegate something to you. I'm like, oh, come to me with any questions. And then I'm ghost town.
Hmm.
You can't reach me. I seem too busy. You have to keep nagging me for a response. Like it's those little ways
Yeah,
on a
that happens a
day-to-day
lot.
basis. Exactly.
That
And all
happens
of
way too
those
much.
put dents, little dents, or the absent appreciation is something else, where you delegate deadlines in our world are expected, but
Yeah,
sometimes it requires a lot of effort and sacrifice to meet that deadline. If I
yeah.
don't acknowledge that effort and sacrifice, that could put a dent in the trust for you. And if I do that repeatedly, like if I don't appreciate what you've done over time, there's less trust there. You're
Yeah.
not going to trust me as much because I'm not showing you that you're adding value.
So the best way to restore, and I feel like we've kind of covered that a little bit from the standpoint of taking ownership and realizing it's a mutual thing. Are there any other suggestions of when you feel like maybe you've been ghosted or that someone hasn't done what they're supposed to do, that trust has eroded, how to repair it?
Yeah. The really critical part is conversation.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple. And that's probably the biggest piece of feedback I give about everything I teach is that, common sense, not commonly practiced kind of idea. Because I
Yeah.
think it's so easy for us to just ignore or move on to somebody else or just not engage because we don't want to have the conversation. And that's just a big problem, especially if you need that person in your life.
Yeah. Something that I talk about quite a bit with my clients is how important it is to keep clients that you have developed happy and loyal, and you don't want them to ever leave. And I think trust is a big part of that. And is there something? Are there a couple of tips that you would give to say, look, to maintain long-term loyal clients and relationships? These are some things that you need to do that will continue to make sure they never go anywhere and make sure that they always will call you when there's a problem.
Yeah. I think number one is proactive and intentional communication
Yeah,
around all topics. Again, sounds simple, but doesn't always happen. And not because people are malintended. I think sometimes it just gets busy.
yeah,
We're trying to close a deal and all of a sudden the bill is ratcheting up. And now we get to the end of the month and it's three times what we all thought it was going to be. So being mindful of those times when those kinds of activities could happen and even having a conversation up front with a client to say, when we get to this part of the deal, the bill is going to spiral.
mm,
So how do you want me to communicate with you as this is happening? Or are you okay that you just get it at the end? Or, so being mindful of those moments in the relationship trajectory that could cause problems. Or, when things are urgent, what do you want our conversation to be? Or what do you want our communication protocol to be? And by the way, here are the three people that you can reach out to if you can't find me in the moment. So I
yeah,
think thinking about those crossroads that can be moments where trust can erode and discussing them up front with our clients will go a long way in persevering the trust.
yeah. I love that. And the thing that I want to make sure everybody takes away from this is that we need to be obviously intentional about communication, setting expectations, how we follow through and execute on
Yeah.
things. These are all like little stepping stones that if you miss one or miss two, you may not even realize it because there may be so many in there.
Yeah.
Um, is there like a plan for building trust? Is there a process that people should be using, or is it just something they should just do naturally?
I don't know if there's a plan necessarily, other than, there are a number of pillars, and you've just talked about integrity. Integrity is one of them. Competence is another. Transparent communication is another. All those kinds of pillars of communicate or of trust, I think, are things to focus on in the way that they play out on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
So it's more about being diligent and mindful than a plan per
yeah.
se.
I mean, it might just, I mean, a big part of it and I'm noticing this, people breaking commitments. They
Yeah.
agree to something. Oh yeah, I'll make that introduction for you, Tracy. And crickets, right? And then you've got to
Yeah.
follow up with me. I don't respond to your email. I'm busy. Okay. these are the little things that we just assume that people are okay with, and they're not, and I'm not, and it's affecting how I feel about somebody and my interest in wanting to continue that relationship. And the relationship could be the difference between that sending them a lot of business or coaching them or whatever it might be. So I think we talk a little bit about the importance of commitments as it relates to trust.
Yeah. I mean, integrity is everything. And I define integrity as doing what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it.
Hmm.
Simple definition. And if you don't have integrity in the way that you respond and interact with people, you're never going to have their trust.
Yeah.
So the relationship will become transactional. And that client may need you for a particular experience, but as soon as somebody else comes along who does demonstrate integrity, you're done.
Yeah.
You might as well forget it. So you can be the best person with the best experience and expertise. However, it's how you are to work with that drives the longevity of a client relationship.
All right, I'm going to throw a surprise question at you in the form of a role play. All right, we're going to do this because
Okay.
there's lawyers that are going to get a lot of value out of this particular scenario. So hopefully you're up for it.
Great.
Because I'm throwing this out at you out of nowhere. So I'm gonna play the role of an attorney. We're not really role playing. We're just going to talk it out. But I'm an attorney. I have been going through some personal things. I haven't been responsive to in particular, one of my most important clients. They've emailed me. I've taken days to get back. I've been very sharp. I just haven't been myself because of things that they don't even know are happening with me behind the scenes. And I don't necessarily want to share that personal stuff. And that has eroded the relationship a little bit. And I cannot lose this client. And I've got to figure out how to resolve it. What would you consider, and you're consulting me as the attorney talking to you through this problem? What are you telling me?
Yeah. I am telling you to to go have a discussion with the client.
Okay.
It's a mea culpa of sorts, number one.
Get
Because I
on the
find
get on the phone.
absolutely.
Okay.
This is not an email, this is not a text, this has got to
Yep.
be live.
Yep.
If you can see face to face, even better,
Right.
because people will take in that you are sincere, but they at least have to hear your voice. And I find that most decent human beings will give someone grace once.
Hmm.
Someone grace once, unless it's a brand new relationship, maybe not, but they'll give you grace. So you've got to acknowledge it and you've got to own it. Also, I need you to acknowledge the impact that this has had on the client. Because the minute that you do that, if I'm doing this to you, Steve, I'm like, I realize I've not been super responsive. I've had some things going on, yada yada, give whatever the reason is. I say yada yada. It matters.
Well, but here's the
but then I
yeah.
say, I realize that has put you behind, or I realize that left you scrambling for information, or I realize, and so it's that acknowledgement of the inconvenience that has caused you will help also incent you to give me grace and or maybe help you realize that I get the full picture because I've put myself in your shoes.
And do I need to explain the personal situation and try to get like sympathy for that? Or do I leave it out and just say personal things? I don't want to, I don't want to, have to get into the details of it. That's not your concern. It's on me, and just
Yeah.
like own it like that.
I don't think you have to give a lot of details at all, but
Okay.
I think you need to give them something.
Okay.
I think you need to characterize it in some way, whether it was, I've had a really difficult personal situation, or I've
Yeah.
had a medical situation. Like, and that's all kind of all you need to say, but I think you need to characterize it a little bit so that it gives them confidence that this is a one-off thing
Yeah.
and not going to be a recurring, repetitive kind of thing. Or maybe it is, maybe you do have a health issue that's going to be sustainable. You don't have to tell them what it is, but it's like, yeah, I've got some health stuff where it's going to have me in and out a little bit. So I'd like to talk with you about how we can still be responsive and share with you the people that I put in place to back me up
Yeah.
for those times when I may be, out of pocket, given
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah. And I think, trust is a two-way street. And I'm very trusting. But if you burn me, I'll give you a second chance. And if you burn me again, right, I think then This is demonstrating a pattern
Yeah,
of trustworthiness, lack of trustworthiness, lack of integrity, and I don't really want to have relationships with people that I can't trust and that I think are breaking the trust continually. So I think we got to like think about, and you talk, this may be the greatest lead ever back to joy, but like when you find people that you love and trust and can enjoy and spend time with them and then get rid of the people who break the trust and that aren't your favorite people, more joy.
agreed.
Full
Wholeheartedly.
circle. Wow. Okay. I must be pretty good at this thing. Coming around the full circle there. Holy mackerel. All right. Um, so cool. Let's go and talk about your game-changing book. And I'm absolutely fascinated by sleep. And I'm 54 years old. I've never had a problem with sleep. I've always gotten my 7 solid. Only in the last couple months have I been waking up at like 3 and 4 o'clock. And like, what? Why? I don't know. And so tell us about this book, Why We Sleep.
Yeah, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's just when I read that book, my brain was exploding. Like, wow, that's why that wow, that's oh, wow, oh, interesting, And so he just makes sleep understandable. He explains how it works, so is the science behind it. He also gives a lot of social science around the criticality of it, because many people almost wear a badge of honor when they get little sleep, like, oh, I can survive off 4 hours. Well,
Mhm.
you could be, but the science says you're going to die earlier than me, who gets 7, and gives suggestions, for how to improve sleep over time. And the National Institutes of Health has some great suggestions too around that kind of thing. But it's just one of those, sleep is so critical. And again, another thing that's taken for granted because it happens every day. But it's just like staying fit and any other discipline you want to have in your life. It is one of those things that if you do it with discipline, will physically give you a better life.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is not a topic we're going to get into, but it just goes back to how critical it is to have discipline, discipline to eat, discipline to sleep, discipline to work, to break away and have special time with, away from work, or whatever it might be. And I don't think, and I'm seeing my teenager grow up and his discipline is, minimal. And, of course he won't listen to me. So my father, Larry the lawyer, he had great discipline. It was called his belt, different type of discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when his hand went to his belt, boy, I sure got on mowing the
Straighten
lawn or
up.
whatever I had to do. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, so wonderful having you. As we wrap up, want to thank our sponsors. One of them is me. I'm the sponsor, and it's talking about the Rainmakers Roundtables. These are $1 million plus attorneys that are managing firms that feel like they're on an island. They want to be in an environment, in a room with other sophisticated, smart lawyers to talk shop, scaling, business development, marketing, time management, growth, and have me as their coach along the way. If anyone's interested in auditing one of my Rainmaker Roundtables, just email me at steve@fretzin.com. I'll get you in November, December, whenever this comes out, to get you a free audit. And then, of course, rankings.io, phenomenal marketing agency focused on websites and SEO and pay-per-click and all that great stuff. Tracy, so amazing. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to really get to check out who the Joy Cheever really is and what you're all about, what are the best digits for them to find you?
Yeah, the best place is to go to my website, joycheever.com, or my email address is Tracy, Tracy, at joycheever.com.
Yeah.
And so I've got the new trust book called Trust Me, an insider's guide to being a go-to person at work, that a lot of what we talked about is encapsulated there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being an amazing guest on my show. I mean, I feel like this conversation was incredible, and that people listening that maybe aren't paying enough attention to their relationships and the trust factor, are going to really take to heart what we shared today. So thanks so much again.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody, for spending time with Tracy and I today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Again, helping you to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well, and we'll talk again real soon.